Hello. Growing up, we had a kitchen. All of us did, probably. In my kitchen growing up, my mom had a decorative apron, and my mom didn't really cook, so it was kind of cute that there was an apron, but this apron just hung on a hook, and it had the apron and a little pot holder that hung next to it. And it was kind of quilted and cute for the time. And on the apron, it said, "You will catch more flies with honey than with vinegar." And it was just a cute apron. But I wanted to share with you today a principle that reminds me of that. So, in our studios and in our homes, actually, just as people, we have kind of two sort of competing, sometimes leadership styles. Usually, we have one of them that comes very natural to us, and the other one we get to work to adopt. So, the first one is, hopefully, you can see this, called tough minded. Actually, I'm going to put a square around that. And, ooh, it's really hard for you to see that. Have to get some better markers. Over here is tough minded, okay? And over here is called warm hearted. Okay, so it's probably kind of obvious what each of them might represent, but I'll tell you a little bit about both of them so you can identify where you are at and where other leaders or people in your life fall. And then we'll talk about why this is powerful to understand. And it's not hard to understand. It's not rocket science. You probably already know this intuitively. These are just the words that we use for it. So tough-mindedness is kind of the idea of there are boundaries, there are rules, they need to be followed, and our children and people need to be responsible and learn those boundaries. And they won't learn those boundaries unless we hold them in some way. That's a tough-minded way of viewing the world. And when we're talking about children, viewing how we raise our children, it also applies to leadership. We got to be clear with the boundaries. We got to hold the boundaries. That's the way we need to do it. Warm-hearted is more, yes, and everyone needs a second chance, and everyone's trying hard and doing our best, and we love each other, and so we love each other. So sometimes these come in conflict. I've had some of you share this week how these conflict in your parenting styles, which is actually a really beautiful thing. The thing that it's hard to understand, especially in the thick of the moment, is there isn't one that's superior or right above the other. The perfect leader is both tough-minded and warm-hearted. And as a parent or a parenting couple, if you have a balance of tough-minded and warm-heartedness, then you're in really good shape. The hard part is we all tend towards one or the other, and they're both true. They both have truth in them. So I tend to be more warm-hearted naturally, and so I know the truth of my warm-heartedness. I know we should see people for their potential. I know that my children are trying. I know they need second chances. All true. And I love you, Brad. Brad tends to be more naturally tough-minded. We need to hold the lines. They're not going to learn. And I have come to really appreciate tough-mindedness. I have learned that it is actually unkind to not have some tough-minded structures in place. Here's how the two come together in a really beautiful manner. And this is how we use these in studios as we set up our learning design. We create boundaries. This is the tough-minded part of things. There are boundaries. We work to make them clear. And if you cross the boundaries, that was your choice. You have the choice to cross the boundaries. The boundaries are there. And on the other side of the boundaries is a consequence of some kind. But when you cross the boundaries, we're going to approach you with warm-heartedness, with love, with understanding that you're a person, that you're learning, that you might need another chance, that we all try and we fail and we get back up again. But there is no real clear failure if we don't have boundaries demarcated. Is that a word? I need to look that up. If we don't have boundaries that are drawn out and marked and held. So the perfect balance of these is when the boundaries are held with love. When our children cross boundaries, it is hard to respond in love. And when we feel deeply loved and our children cross boundaries, it's hard to hold the boundaries. So a balanced, tough-minded, warm-hearted leader knows where they're at and makes up for it by learning the tools of the other one and acknowledging how very important both are. So my challenge for you is to think through, am I more of a warm-hearted, we say rescuer, or a tough-minded persecutor? Those words might throw you off a bit. That's okay. That's really a video for another day. But analyze yourself. Neither one is better. Warm-hearted rescuer sounds nicer, but it's really not when you get into it. A tough-minded persecutor sounds like you're being mean. That's really not the intention of it. Are you more warm-hearted? Are you more tough-minded? And when you set up systems in your home and in your heart, you need some balance of both. So analyze that for yourself. And then I want to give you one other just kind of challenge. If you have a parenting partner, a spouse that you are raising children with, sometimes we get into this trap of understanding the truth of our natural leadership style, tough-minded or warm-hearted. And so what would happen, sometimes still does, with Brad and I, is he would show up tough-minded. I would not feel the balance in that. I would show up warm-hearted, but even more so than I normally would. And so that would leave him feeling that he needed to compensate even more because we've got to draw some lines. And so we would each get stronger and stronger and weightier in these. And then what that did is cause conflict for us. And it didn't actually solve anything or help our child have an understanding of the boundaries of our family at all. So that's my second challenge to you, is to just analyze, think through situations where you've leaned really hard into your side, and then it causes the other person to lean really hard into their side. And both cause a measure of contention. I heard a quote today that said, contention stops all progress. And I was like, that is an absolute truth. Not that we can't disagree, and not that we can't work with people to figure things out. But when we have that contention, it is a stop. And in our homes, when we aren't unified in our systems, in our boundaries, and how we hold the lines of our boundaries with love, then it causes contention, not only between the parenting partners, but for our child as well. And they recognize that, and it leaves them in confusion. So I'm going to do another video that explains, I call it Parenting 101. I just made that up. It's the lesson that I learned about parenting way too late in our life, and we use it as a principle to set up systems in the studios, and I want to share it with you. Lots of you have asked this week for some tools, and it's one of the best tools to help bring balance to these in your home, for yourself, in your systems, for your child, and really to be able to find peace in your child crossing boundaries, because they will, and we actually want them to. But how we show up when they do is what we have to work on, what I have to work on. And I would like to share with you some tools I've found to help me do that.